Coming up next, a show that showcases the beauty of each season. During my years as a garden designer, I've enjoyed helping homeowners create private sanctuaries full of beauty and wonder. I find each garden to be a fresh opportunity to explore and create uniquely personal spaces. These are just a few of the gardens I've helped transform into garden homes. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to The Garden Home, a show about design, creating beautiful outdoor living spaces, and blurring the lines between inside and out. Now in today's show, we're going to take a walk through the 4 seasons. And what I'd like to do in each season is pull an idea that you can use to bring nature a little closer to you. For instance, I think about big, beautiful Christmas trees or fresh garland in the winter, and nothing says autumn like a vast landscape full of fall foliage. Now each spring I eagerly anticipate starting with what I call my salad garden. The season's cool temperatures are ideal for growing some of my favorite greens. I grow plenty of arugula. It's also known as rocket, as well as the king of gourmet salad greens. You see, arugula has a dark green leaf, slightly like an elongated oak leaf. Well, and the flavor, well, it's very peppery to taste. Now one of my all-time favorites is butter crunch lettuce. The compact heads have a thick, juicy green leaf. It's tinged in red with a yellow-white heart. It's so tasty. All it needs is just a little light dressing. When you decide to plant tulip bulbs, I want you to keep in mind that these bulbs need to be planted in the fall in order to have those beautiful spring blooms that we all adore. I like to plant my tulips in large groups or drifts. You see, when it comes to color, I try to choose tulips that are all in the same color family. And then I like them planted against a dark evergreen background, such as a hedge or shrubs. Now since tulips bloom at different times, depending on the varieties, I plant some of the early, mid, and late to extend the season of flowering. You see, as far as I'm concerned, you can't have too many tulips. When you arrange them like this, you're going to create a breathtaking view. When you decide to have guests over and dine outdoors, there are a few things you may want to consider when it comes to decorating or dressing the table. You see, I like to use cut flowers, but frankly, they don't hold up very well in the hot sun. So if your event involves sitting in the sun, you may want to reconsider the cut flowers. Cut flowers are great for an evening event, but you might want to go to potted annuals to set on the table if the event is in the full sun and during the day. Also, wind is a big issue. One big gust of wind can blow a flower arrangement over so easily. One suggestion I have is to keep flower arrangements very small and not top heavy. This will not overpower your setting, but give you just the right amount of color. Again, think about using potted annuals. Now, when I collect flowers, when I'm doing flower arranging, I try to do it in the morning and arrange them in little bouquets. Then I strip the leaves and wrap the bundle of stems with a rubber band. The final touch is just placing them in a small container with water. And hey, you're done. I recently took a trip to Kentucky where I had the pleasure of visiting historic Churchill Downs. There I talked with the director of horticulture, a friend of mine, John Backert, about how much is planted on the grounds and what does he do to prepare for the Kentucky Derby. Well, John, this is probably, at least to me, the second most recognizable place at Churchill Downs. First would be the spires. There behind you, and then here, Winner's Circle.
Yeah, the Kentucky Derby Winner's Circle, hallowed ground to horsemen.
Yeah, I know, and what beautiful plantings here. Again, I can't believe we're almost to November, and you've got geraniums blooming like this.
Right, and I'll keep these geraniums in until they really get to take a good freeze and get knocked down. They last quite a bit of cold, but I've got another group of mums coming to put in as soon as these go bad.
I see. Now notice you've got tiered beds of mums that are just beginning to break color.
Right, and you know, my big races in the fall are actually Thanksgiving weekend, the Stephen Foster. So if I brought them in early, beginning of the meet, I wouldn't have much color towards the end. So you know, it's all a timing issue.
Sure.
And so those are just coming on. So
very good.
Right.
Well, it looks like your knockouts across the back are holding their own.
Yeah, they're kind of holding their own. They're kind of doing the backbone of the work in this garden right now, waiting for those mums to come on.
Yeah. Do you think the knockouts will be blooming for the Stephen Foster race?
It depends on how much cold we get. They usually go through Thanksgiving. You know, if I get down in the 20s or something, then maybe a different story. But I think they're going to do okay.
You're doing a great job. Thank you so much for the tour.
Thanks for you guys to come by. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad you all had a good time.
Mother Nature puts on one heck of a show every autumn through many parts of the United States. It's apparent when the leaves begin to change to bright yellows, vibrant reds, and incredible orange hues. On a recent trip to Petit Mountain, I chatted with a couple of park interpreters who spoke about the beautiful fall colors of the Ozarks.
Deciduous trees are the ones that change color. They're the hardwood trees, what we call the hardwood trees, hickories and oaks, maples. When the days get shorter, the light of days get shorter and the nights get cooler, signals are sent to the trees to begin the process of going dormant. There's chlorophyll in the leaves that gives it its green color for most of the year. When the process of photosynthesis ends, there's also some color, some yellow and orange color in the leaf that's been there all the time that the chlorophyll is masked that also remains in the leaf. So the colors begin to show up as the chlorophyll disappears.
Some trees will actually start turning colors when it's technically still summertime. But then when you start seeing trees like the maples and the hickories turning colors, then in my opinion, that's when fall is really upon us. You know, as far as when you're going to get the most color, that's a very, very difficult thing to predict. Generally, sometime late October or early November is when that tends to happen around here.
Gosh, several years ago, I can remember we had two color peaks. There was an early sweet gum and maple color peak, and then the colors kind of faded, and we thought, well, that's it for the fall. And then the oaks came along and made some pretty nice color after that, about a week and a half or two later. So it's really hard to predict leaf color. I don't know anyone that does it right on the money all the time. On deciduous trees, leaves are kind of like disposable energy collectors. And in the fall, when the tree is about to go dormant, they're no longer needed, so they go to the ground and they decompose, and they serve another function at that point by providing nutrients, not only for the trees they fell from, but for a lot of other things, a lot of microscopic type life too.
Sometimes it just seems like the air is more crisp in the autumn, the sky looks clearer, it can be a really sharp, beautiful blue that's kind of missing for most of the summer. It can be a great time to go out with a camera and take pictures.
Ultimately, there's something ancient and mysterious about fall color that people are drawn to, and people come in droves to see it, not only in Arkansas, but in other states too.
You have to wonder just how many teachers really get an apple on the first day of school. Well, I've got an A+ idea. Why not give your teacher an orchid? Just take a look at this glass apple-shaped vase. Perfect for planting an orchid in. It's very easy to put together. You see, you just start with some red confetti. What you want to do is fill the jar and shape a hole in the center by pressing the confetti firmly to the sides of the container. Next, remove the orchid from its original container and place it into a plastic liner, and then put the orchid inside the jar. Next, place 2 rulers into the plastic liner. You want to be careful not to cut into the orchid's roots. Now you want to remove the original clips and supports from the orchid and tie the stems to the ruler with a coated wire. There are holes in the rulers to run the wire through. Okay, now take the 3rd ruler and just run it across so you can attach it to the top of the other 2 rulers. You can see you're creating a support for the stems. And last, but certainly not least, add a little moss to the base of the jar and some to cover the wires holding the rulers in place. You see, this whole idea is meant to look like an apple, so try using slightly green colored orchids that will act as the stem and leaves. This is the perfect gift for the first day of school, a teacher's birthday, or just a gift of appreciation. You'll get top marks for this smart gift. You know, when the holidays roll around, it gives us a great opportunity in many ways to blur the lines between inside and out. This idea of bringing the garden indoors. We do it with holiday plants such as poinsettias and Christmas cactus, and then there's no end to the greens with wreaths and garlands and certainly Christmas trees. And I like a big tree. I either like a small tabletop tree or a really big one, and this one is 12 feet tall. As you can see, I have a lot of lights on it. In fact, there are about 2,500 individual lights here, but what's special about them is that they are LED. LED lights allow me to have a greener Christmas. They don't require as much energy as most traditional Christmas lights. As a matter of fact, they use approximately 90% less electricity than conventional incandescent bulbs. So what they can also do by keeping the temperature down, you see they don't get hot, they actually keep your tree from drying out prematurely. If you touch one of the bulbs, you'll find it's actually cool to the touch. The other thing that's interesting about these is that the strands themselves will last a long time. And you're going to think this is ridiculous, but you can get up to 10 to 20,000 hours of beauty out of one strand of lights. And the other thing is that they're made of plastic, so there's no breakage involved like you had with incandescent bulbs. Each year I try to create a little different theme for my Christmas tree. Here at the Garden Home Retreat with these 12-foot ceilings, I went with a 12-foot Fraser fir. One thing I always do is I always like to integrate store-bought and homemade ornaments. The store-bought ornaments are pretty obvious. They're the glass balls you see. Some look rather old-fashioned, but they're actually very new. I like the pine cones. They're slightly off the silver theme, but they add a little punch. And then, of course, the beads, the garland, as well as these wonderful snowflakes. They add a little sparkle and some panache to the tree. Now let's talk about some of the homemade ornaments, like this little star. You see, what's great about having some homemade ornaments is it makes the tree look old-fashioned, gives it some soul. This is a salt dough ornament. We have about 60 of these on the tree. They're really easy to make. They're made from salt, flour, and warm water, baked like a cookie in any shape you like. And then we painted them with house paint. I just used an interior latex, the same color we used here in the house, called Nantucket Breeze. It's a low VOC paint, and these should last for a long, long time. Some of the other homemade ornaments that you'll see on the tree include these wonderful little origami birds, which are made out of doilies. They cost about 5 cents a piece. And then take a look at some of our icicles. Those are just 2 pipe cleaners twisted together to look like an icicle. Pretty convincing, huh? And then take a look at some of these macaroni birds or mythological creatures. They're made with different types of macaroni, some lima beans, and glue. All it takes is those few ingredients and some imagination. And then I finished the tree off by using some wide velvet, wired ribbon, and created these large bows and placed them all over the tree. Created a great sense of contrast to the green and all the cool colored ornaments. So that's the theme for this year. I'm really pleased with it, and who knows what I'll come up with for next season. Welcome to my design studio. Here's where I take photographs from gardens, viewers such as yourself, and take a look at them and come up with ways to improve the landscape. Now today we have a special one. My intern this year, Ben Ford, has pictures of his home from Middle Tennessee. Hey Ben, how are you?
I'm fine, Alan, thanks.
Good, I'm glad you're here. Hey, I like your house. I really like the color. I love that sort of taupe color because you can do so many different things with it. And then the stone's very nice. Yeah. So now you're thinking that you may want to just focus on, I guess this is the south side of the house or the west side. This is the west side.
Side.
Yeah, so you get a lot of sun. Yeah, great. Well, you know, I think that I would want to enclose this patio a little bit.
With a rail or something?
You could do a rail across here like this. Just a standard crisscross rail would be kind of nice, and probably paint it a dark color. You could pick up some of the darkest tones here in the rock, which would be a nice contrast. I would do that rather than the lighter color of taupe. But let me give you another idea with that. You know, I know that you like container gardening. You could do a series of containers, Ben, along here, a pretty good size, or a 3 or 4, probably just 3 boxes, box planters, and in each one of those you could put a boxwood or something in it to give a sense of enclosure. So you wouldn't have to go to the trouble of mounting a wooden or metal rail across there. You could actually do it with container plants.
That's a great idea.
Well, I'm glad you like the idea. Now let's move over here just a moment. Ben, I'd probably get rid of this.
Yes, a clean slate would be nice.
Yeah, you've already thought about maybe removing that, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you've got stone here, you've got asphalt, you've got pea gravel up here. We need to get rid of one of the elements. And plus, I don't think it works very well just plopped where it is.
It's in the middle of the yard.
It is in the middle. And so what we want to do is we want to get rid of that. So let's also think about how this bed might relate to this space, because I think this offers a really great place. Let me use this to define from here over to here. You know, if we looked at that as a garden, this would be gone. And we've got these box planters up here. Then I think you could anchor the corners here with a plant here and a plant here. You could almost create a path that would take you into this garden down to some focal point here. We'll do this in a different color. So you could create some sort of visual focal point here. And behind it, then, I would do a taller hedge of some kind of holly. Now, you're in Middle Tennessee, so you could plant a Nellie R. Stevens, or certainly, you know, a needlepoint holly would be a beautiful example. Or even you could do a hemlock back here, one single plant, and let it be very loose and free. The hedge you could clip. But you would have a focal point here in a hedge, and then you could create a path all the way down and then plant on either side lots of perennials and so forth. And I think that this makes a really great backdrop here if you want to do some sort of trellis. We could go back to that.
Give that wall some more interest.
It would. And it might even be some sort of trellis like that, which would be very good. And then you could grow some sort of a rose on it that would come up on that side. Now, some of the plants in here, are there some perennials that you like that you would like to include?
I like the autumn joy.
Yep, yeah, you could save that sedum. That's a very good idea. I like to recycle, so we'd save this big sedum plant here. Some things that would go with that would be black-eyed Susans. Those are sort of warmer colors, but if you want to go cooler colors, you could definitely do some of the salvias in here, which would be beautiful. A New Dawn rose on this trellis would be
Your
nice
favorite.
softening. I do love that rose because it's so easy. And then maybe even along this path that we create, maybe you could plant something like catnip that would spill out over the
edge. Okay.
over the edge a little bit. Maybe add just a mixture of coneflowers and perhaps some knockout roses along the path, and maybe even some daylilies in there would be beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for spring, you could, along that path, do all sorts of tulips or daffodils and just, you know, get crazy with all kinds of bulbs. Yeah. I like it. I like it. What do you think?
It's very nice. I think it'll be a great addition.
All right. When do you get started on it?
I don't know.
Oh, you'll figure out a time.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll
Very
find some
good.
time.
It's hard to believe how many vegetables are coming out of that vegetable garden just now. It seems like the hotter it gets, some of the vegetables perform better than others, and nothing likes it hotter than okra. Now, what we're doing today is we're actually going to make some pickled okra. I'm canning it. It's a delicious way to enjoy okra well into the fall and winter and next spring. Now, okra is very easy to grow. The plants are beautiful. They have big yellow flowers on them. And it's actually the seed pod that we eat. Now today I'm going to show you a really basic recipe for pickled okra. It takes just a few ingredients. What you want to start with is about 3.5 to 4 pounds of fresh okra. The smaller the pods, the better. You'll want to have some vinegar on hand. Now what I'm going to add to the 7 cups of vinegar will be 1/3 cup of pickling salt. And once it begins to boil, stir this around just a little bit. Once it begins to boil, and we'll be ready to pour it into the jars. What I do is I take the pint jars and I take just a few cloves of garlic, but I drop a few of those in the bottom. I take a couple of pieces of this pepper, and then I begin to pack in the okra, again layering them in there. Now what I do is I pack about 35 to 36 pods. What you want to do is you want to bring the pods, the pepper and the garlic up to the bottom rim here of the jar, okay? Now one other little spice you can add to this, I like to take a little fresh dill, actually some of the leaves of dill, and just place them on top, and I push those down. Now I think we're ready. Now just for safety's sake, what I like to do is take my jar and place it like this. Then I just simply take the vinegar mixture that's boiling, and I just pour it over the top of the okra. I want to bring it up to about 1/4 of an inch to the top of the jar. You want to make sure that all of the stems are covered. Okay, next I want to get my pot holder here, and I'm going to place the lid on it like this. And the next step will be to place it in this hot bath. You just want to make sure that you've got enough water that comes up over the top of the lid, and you'll want this to boil for 15 minutes. Now, okra is very easy to grow. Like I said, it requires a lot of heat. If you will soak your seed overnight in milk, buttermilk's even better, or just water, you'll find that the germination of the seed will be enhanced, which is a wonderful thing. Once you sow the okra seed, what you will find is that it will germinate within about 6 to 7 days, and it will actually be ready to harvest in about 53 days, which is quite remarkable. Now you can see our 3 cans are now completely covered. Now while these are in the hot bath, what I'm going to do is be getting the next series of jars ready. And it's just amazing how many jars of okra or canned goods you can create once you get the process set up. My goodness, if you've ever grown okra, you know that you have to be out there and cut it almost every day. It grows so rapidly, and it's such an abundant and generous plant. Now, what I'll do after 15 minutes, I'll take these out and set them aside with some tongs. As they cool down, you'll want to hear that jar lid pop, and that means that it's drawn down and it's tightened and it's sealed, and it will last. As you can see, once you get set up with a process like this, you can produce lots of jars of canned goods in a short period of time. Plenty to eat yourself and share with your friends. Now I better get back to work. We consider spring the official beginning of the gardening season. Here you can see things still look a bit dormant, but there is life coming along. Look at these parsnips, and soon the asparagus will be erupting out of the ground, and from there the seasons will unfold. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I hope you've taken away a few ideas that will help you in your garden. From the Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. More information about today's topic and other topics covered in this series can be found at plansmith.com.